What a trial. I've never seen anything like it. Welcome to the Margaret McLean Show. I'm your courtroom translator, and I'm here to break down the key moments of the Lindsay Clancy trial taking place in Plymouth County, Massachusetts. On day one, we heard from Judge Sullivan, opening statements from both sides, and the first witness took the stand. It's a high stakes clash between the prosecution's theory of calculated intent and the defense's narrative of severe medical psychosis. So, as a former prosecutor, I am looking at this through a highly strategic lens. Both sides openly agree on what happened to these poor, innocent victims. Today was a battle over one thing and one thing only, and that would be Lindsay Clancy's mind. Were these intentional acts committed by a sane individual, or did she lack criminal intent due to a severe psychotic break, and that would be mental illness? I liked how Judge Sullivan addressed the jury in the beginning. He spoke to them, not at them. He sympathizes with the tremendous task that they have before them. I mean, they will have to see those gruesome autopsy photos and hear the excruciating 911 call that Patrick Clancy made to the police, which we won't hear due to his prior ruling, and I think that was a correct ruling. I think overall he's a very fair judge. Also, I can tell you that Assistant District Attorney Shannon Buckingham did exactly what she had to do with her opening statement. She stripped away the emotional noise and gave the jury a roadmap of cold, calculated intent. So her opening roadmap and theme was remarkable, in my opinion, as a former prosecutor. She began by humanizing those poor victims, telling a little story about each child and providing jurors with a view into their little innocent lives, telling jurors something special, right? I thought that was very touching and a really good idea. Buckingham told the jury that the defendant acted intentionally, rationally, and swiftly to accomplish a very specific goal here. And she laid out the specifics of each crime. The Commonwealth's strategy is to completely reject the idea that this was a sudden psychotic snap. So she painted Clancy as meticulous and controlling. She suggested that Lindsay deliberately committed the acts not because she lost her mind, but because she felt she could no longer tightly control her life after her third baby was born. She focused heavily on the mechanics of the horrible fatal injuries with the exercise bands. So the prosecution wants to show the jury that each crime took time and physical effort. It requires a conscious choice to continue 3 separate times. Here, her legal strategy was to introduce the raw, emotional reality of the crimes, and her style is very calm, even handed, and she did not overplay her cards. I think the jury will appreciate that. On the flip side, defense attorney Kevin Reddington took a highly calculated veteran trial approach. He's very good. So he immediately conceded the physical acts. He looked at the jury and acknowledged that his client knows exactly what she did. The question is, what was going on in that woman's mind? So, by doing that, he's attempting to strip the prosecution of their shock value and force the jury to look purely at Lindsay's mental capacity. He's suggesting that the evidence will show that Lindsay had a complete postpartum psychotic break. So Reddington suggested that Lindsay had absolutely no criminal motive and was walking around like a zombie due to severe medical failure. He detailed a horrific spiral where she was aggressively prescribed a revolving door cocktail of up to 13 different psychotic medications, psychotropic, in just 3 months' time. I thought one of the best lines in Reddington's opening statement was when he pointed to the front row where District Attorney Tim Cruz was sitting watching the trial, and he accused Cruz of even bringing the charges against his client. Take a listen.
Referendum on women's having babies and having postpartum psychosis, postpartum depression, but it sure as hell is. Because you're going to hear, consistent with what His Honor told you in the instructions, consistent with the obligation that the government has when they brought this charge. Tim Cruz, the DA, right in the front row, brought this charge. He knew, as did his office, the facts of this case. And he knew when he brought this charge that it was going to kill the soul of this young woman. And they would bring their evidence. We'll sit here, listen to their evidence. But I suggest to you that the issue for consideration is what was going on in that woman's mind.
So Patrick Clancy took the stand as the Commonwealth's first witness. I'd say he was a reluctant, highly emotional witness for the prosecution. And across the room, Lindsay kept her head bowed and wept. His voice choked up, and he took, I'd say, deep, heavy breaths as the prosecution forced him to look at the photos of his children, Cora, Dawson, and baby Callan, and describe their personalities. I can't imagine how tough that would be as a dad. He also revealed a massive bombshell to the jury, in my opinion, admitting that 2 months before the tragedy, Lindsay confessed she was having intrusive thoughts about harming her kids. That really stood out to me because if somebody's having those types of thoughts about harming their children or harming themselves, really what people should do is call the police. They will come and commit the person. They'll take them to the hospital. They're highly trained. They'll go to the emergency room and then do a psychiatric evaluation and find a bed for them. Patrick probably didn't know he could do this, but just for people to be aware, that's what should have been done here. And again, I'm not criticizing him, but my heart really breaks for Patrick and, of course, those children. Patrick further detailed her deteriorating mental health, stating her big spiral began in December of 2022 when she was placed on Seroquel, losing massive weight and suffering severe depression. He testified also, and this breaks my heart, that just hours before the tragedy, Lindsay seemed to be having one of her best days, building a snowman outside with the kids. He kissed them goodbye and said, "I'll be right back." And then he left to pick out that takeout, unaware of what was about to happen. So that particular testimony would be good for the prosecution. It bolsters their case that she was not suffering from a psychotic state of mind prior to this tragedy. So I think that the prosecution was surprised with that line, that she was having one of her best days. It'll be interesting to see what the defense does with that on cross-examination. I'm sure that Reddington will do an excellent job cross-examining Patrick Clancy. He has to be careful, though, not to come across harsh, but to gradually get it out that your wife was really suffering from severe mental health issues prior to this happening. So Patrick Clancy ultimately will be an excellent witness for both the prosecution in setting their timeline and for the defense in setting their timeline for the mental health struggles that Lindsay had. I also want to remind you, as the trial progresses, about the importance of burden shifting under Massachusetts law. So take a look at this. Lindsay Clancy is presumed sane if the defense raises a lack of criminal responsibility at the time the crimes were committed. The burden then shifts, and the prosecutor must prove sanity beyond a reasonable doubt. Overall, this is going to be a tough week for jurors as the prosecution presents its case in chief. I'll be following every minute of it live, and then I'll also give you nightly recaps. So once again, thank you for tuning in to the Margaret McLean Show, and make sure you like and subscribe and spread the news. I'll see you tomorrow.